A flash. Hello and welcome back to Living on a Kidney. Thank you all for watching my other video, the 13 years before the transplant, and all the messages I've had. Well, I've been bombarded with kind messages on social media and via text from family, from friends, and also people out there watching my videos. So thank you all for supporting this channel. I've only done 2 videos and they're quite long. But it will get, well, I'm already feeling a bit more confident doing these videos. So this video is all about the transplant and what happened in that one big year, because it's not just the transplant in that year, 2011. That year was just full of ups and downs, different tests, and multiple, well, hundreds of checkups basically in Bristol Hospital and in the Heath in Cardiff. So let's go straight into it. The day of the transplant, or the day before the transplant, that's where I'm going to start off with, because unlike a lot of transplants, mine took place in Bristol and my mother and myself were in separate hospitals. So as I mentioned in the last video, the uncertainty and the sleepless nights, well, I didn't sleep for at least 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the transplant. And when this day came, the day of travelling up to Bristol, like, I was exhausted to start off with. All of us were, because the uncertainty, and also we're all going separate ways almost. So that morning, that Monday morning, I had to say goodbye not only to my grandparents, but I had to say goodbye to my brother Matthew, but he had to say goodbye to me, my mother and father, because we were going up to Bristol. So the emotion, we were, sobbing, emotion was everywhere. We were all emotionally drained by the end of the transplant, obviously, but so going up to Bristol, we were just quiet in the car. It was just quiet because I think we had to pinch ourselves because 13 years of waiting, and it was actually that day, and you had to pinch yourself to realise it was actually happening, and we was just shocked, and all the emotion is just draining. And even going up to Cardiff, my cousins and my auntie and uncle from Cardiff, they all ran across one of the walk bridges of the M4 motorway and waved and flown the Welsh flag and everything, and that just hit us. So again, by the time when we left Llangadeir, my village back home, we were crying and we almost got over it, and by the time we reached Cardiff, we were crying again. So yeah, it was just, I think it was just, I couldn't believe it really that day. But then it just got worse really, because, not worse, it just got more, well, harder, because we reached Bristol, my children's hospital, my mother came in and everything, and it didn't start on the right foot, because they wanted to put a cannula in my hand on that day, and it took them at least about 3 hours to put it on, because they couldn't find a vein to put it, and every time they tried they couldn't, and they had to wait an hour or so, because they decided to put cream on my hand, which numbed it, so they could just keep on stabbing the cannula in. But they managed to do it, but that just started everything on the wrong foot, because I never had that problem. But it gave a lot of memories to my parents, because when I was a baby, a little kid, they couldn't take blood from me because I was so young. So that just, I think, sparked some feelings when they were watching that happening. But yeah, so that was already hard. It just started off so hard. But we had to say goodbye to my mother because she had to go to a different hospital. So for me, I was distraught. And it was even harder because that day was Dydd Santes Dwynwen, and Santes Dwynwen is a Welsh Valentine's Day, basically. And before she left 2 cards well, she left cards for my brother as well, and she left one for myself and my father. And it was more than just a love card. It just put everything in perspective, really. It was a bit, you don't know what could happen. So yeah, that was a difficult bit. And that evening, my father took her to Southmead. Luckily, we were very fortunate. My grandparents, so my mother's parents, looked after Mum. They came up the day before the transplant. So when she came around from her operation, she would have company. So she wasn't alone, but we all felt alone because we were all in different points. Because I was having an operation, my father was watching. He was watching both of his loved ones going into 2 big operations. Same with my brother, and he also, he didn't have his father to look after him, even though, that day was horrible, but also it had that excitement. So it hit me hard that day, and then sleepless nights again. But yeah, the day of the transplant was different because at 7 o'clock in the morning, my mother was already down in the operating room. So after 4 hours in that operation room, it was my turn, and when it came to my my preparation for the transplant that morning, like, I was knackered because lack of sleep. My father was knackered as well, but so my mother, it's a bit odd as well when, like I said, 4-hour operation just to remove a kidney, and my operation was going to only take about an hour. So it's about quite crazy little thing to think about, because it takes longer to pull something out than actually put a new organ into someone else. So it was a bit weird to come around. But another weird thing, or funny thing about the transplant, a lot of people think, when you take an organ or something, they put it in the back of a van, donor van, so on, a transplant van and stuff, or even a motorbike, like a give blood motorbikes, they put them in there to get to place it quicker. But in a different video, I'll talk about that, because all different organs have different times they can live outside the body, if that's the correct word. So my kidney could last about 36 hours. A kidney can last about 36 hours outside the body, but the heart would only take about 4 hours before it's useless. So that's another video to talk about, because a lot of people don't understand little things like that. So, but yeah, my kidney, when they, my mother's kidney, when they retrieved it, instead of taking it in a van or a motorbike, they actually had a taxi. They jumped in the taxi, the surgeon and the nurse, with a box with her kidney in, took a taxi from one side of Bristol into the city centre just to give it to me, basically. So it's a bit crazy, and it's a bit comical as well. So I don't know if my kidney paid the fees for it, but so it's quite funny to think about it like that. But yeah, so while that was all happening, while the kidney was having a sightseeing trip of Bristol, I was actually nervous wreck and walking down to the surgery room. So my father and I was walking down with with one of the nurses, and I had a drip attached to me, walking with the drip down, and it was scary. And at this point, we were going into a room where I was going to get the anaesthetic or the medication to make me fall asleep, and they would put it through the cannula. And if you've had anaesthetic, they would usually tell you to count from 10, backwards from 10, or say your name, and then usually you'll just fall to sleep straight away. And I remember lying there on that bed right before the surgery, like the surgery room or operating room, and I was looking up, and that's all I could see. I could still see it today. I could picture it now. A double door with 2 portals, like circular windows, and the light from this operating room was shining through, and it was so bright, and I can feel like the cold liquid going into my hand, and I was tearing up, emotional, telling my father I love him, and my brother and everyone, because the uncertainty, I don't want to say it, but something catastrophic could happen following a transplant. So when this happened, I couldn't count backwards from 10, and I just held my father's hand so tight. I could probably probably there was no blood circulation to his fingers. It was so tight, and I just fell asleep, and it just went like I just shut my eyes, and I don't remember anything else except for waking up on the other side. But so yeah, while I fell asleep and went into the operation, my mum was coming around, and my father was basically just hanging around now. So he was going around the coffee places waiting, and they said to us that it would take about an hour or so for a transplant to be completed on my side, but it took about 2.5 hours because it didn't go to plan. So yeah, the transplant didn't go to plan. Usually with a transplant, a kidney would turn pink with, like basically showing that the blood is going through the kidney. But when they did it, they connected my kidney up to my own body. The kidney didn't accept the blood. It basically turned black. So the kidney transplant didn't go well at all. After a lot of fiddling about, it's not a nice thing to say when they do an operation, but after a bit of thing, they couldn't do anything. So the thing they decided to do was to close me up, basically close me up knowing that my kidney wasn't working, and to wait it out and see if anything happens. And if not, basically have a rethink and do something else. But because it didn't happen, my kidney wasn't working, and I was on, back to square one basically at this point. And the funny thing is, when I celebrate 10 years or like my anniversaries, I usually put the same photo up every year, and it's a photo with me with a mask, and I put it on. It's a photo with me with a mask and a thumbs up. This was me straight after the operation, back in my award. This was a point I actually remember waking up, and I remember the weight of the mask, the oxygen mask on my face, and also just you can hear the electric of other monitors and stuff around me, and I remember that. And my father said, I remember waking up and I just went, "It's done, it's done, it's done." My father just grabbed the phone and took a picture of me with a thumbs up, and I thought everything was fine. But my father was. I could see from him looking back, he didn't look happy, or he looked a bit on edge, and that's why we found out that the kidney wasn't working. And I didn't find this out until later on, about a year after the transplant. I didn't find out about this, and so they said to wait it out. He phoned my mother. She was upset as well, and everybody was on sticks except for me, because I was high on the anaesthetic and other drugs and drips and stuff. So I was happy as Larry, or when I say that I mean like outdoors, because I was basically knocked out for almost 24 hours really. So knocked out, and then the day after came, and that's when I actually started coming around. My mask was off, and I started to come around, and my father looked, he was very excited, and he looked better. And then he spoke about what was happening, and he said that my kidney was working. And only after the transplant I found out what happened, and basically that's what happened was they waited out, and they were up all night, and come 12 o'clock, my father got up from his bed and went round my bed. And on the side of my bed, I had a bag where all the waste from my kidney would go, from my new kidney would go to. So all the urine from my mum's kidney, the transplant kidney, would go into that bag. But because it wasn't working, there wasn't anything in there. So my father started going around the side of the bag, and he noticed some urine, basically, or waste. And he ran out, 12 o'clock at night, ran out to the reception and grabbed one of the nurses. the nurse came in and he said, yes, it's working, there's something happening. And then apparently they were both having a massive party, like celebrating, dancing around in my bedroom. And well, I was upstairs, but yeah, they did celebrate. So yeah, it did kickstart me at 12 o'clock at night, and it's worked ever since, basically. So it was just amazing. Imagine, I could picture my father's reaction, and he always carries this lucky coin, which he rubs, and apparently he said that day he rubbed it so hard it stained his thumb, and he was worried he was going to have like a reaction because he was rubbing this copper penny so hard it was basically all the copper was going in onto his thumb. So, but all that rubbing and all that. Hope it all worked out in the end, and from there that operation. Well, the transplant in the hospital, that period took me about 3 weeks, being in hospital, and with under a week, I was craving food. So, like in the last video, I was talking about food. The first thing I wanted was a Sunday lunch. I loved, and honestly, I didn't like Sunday lunch, but I just fancied it. And bear in mind, I was in hospital, and a lot of people talk about, hospital foods are not nice. I saw the Sunday lunch come out on the wall, and I asked if I could have food, and I had it, and it just went down. I can't explain it. I just enjoyed it. I felt like Gordon Ramsay or someone just tasting food, like judging it and everything. It was so nice, and I was drinking milkshakes and everything. It was just weird. That was the first point I remember. It clicked that, oh my god, something's actually happening. This is the gift of life. This was my new release of life, basically. I was weird, and I couldn't believe it. And my parents couldn't believe it. And within under that week as well, the professor came in and saw me, and doctor and surgeon. They said, "You're doing very well. Now start walking." So I started walking now with tubes still on me. And every day a tube would fall off. They would take a tube or a cannula out. And that's when I hated, I didn't like stitches at all. But it felt good. Every stitch that came out, I felt a lot better. And every day something happened. And by the end of the week, I actually went out and visited my mother. That's how amazing a kidney transplant can be, or any transplant in that case. So the end of that week, start of the week, it could have gone completely different. But at the end of that week, I was actually out of hospital for the first time. Yes, I had a cannula bag, not cannula, a catheter bag, but I was out and actually out of hospital. But it still took me 3 weeks for everything to get better. So being in hospital almost was coming to an end, because after 3 weeks of hospital, being in hospital, living in hospital, every day I was getting better. Every day a tube or a machine would be pulled off of me, basically, if that's a nice way to say it. But every day there was progress, and it came to a point where I had probably only my catheter bag on me. And at that day, the day they pulled it off was the day basically before I was allowed to leave, because the professors and the doctors and nurses all were happy with my development and my basically looking after my kidney, how well the kidney was coping. The pharmacists also was very important, were very key to the transplant, for every transplant patient, because the pharmacists are the ones that make sure you take the right amounts of medication to keep your kidney working well, and also making sure that the body's basically making the body not wanting to kick it out or reject the organ. So at this day, it was probably one of the best days, because even though I hate the stitches, but I was like, just get them out, because I want to get out of this place. And we managed to get out of the hospital after about 3 weeks. But the process is longer because I had to stay at home for at least another month or so because I had to be in isolation. I had to be away from people with bugs. They didn't want me to be with a lot of people because my immune system was basically out cold. I was still on a lot of medication as well. And anything like a flu or an illness of some sort can probably jeopardise the transplant kidney, because it was such early days. But I managed to get back home to my village in West Wales, with a massive open arms, from the village, and well, the village has always been a massive support and a big part of our family, and just coming back to that just felt right almost. It just felt the best place to be and to recover, and managing to see my friends and also just spend every minute of my day with my brother almost, because while just sitting there in hospital, you have so much time to think about things, and you worry what's going to happen to you, and if you're going to see anyone again. So that when coming back home, I tried to spend every time with everyone, because you have to treasure that, and that's a lesson to everyone. You need to treasure who you've got, because you don't know what's going to happen in the following day. Basically, anything can happen. So yeah, it was so nice to be at home. I didn't miss a lot of school because I had teachers coming to my house, and I also did some work in hospital as well. And that year in year 8, I think it was, I probably did the best. I had the best results over the school period, because year 8 I did very well in my end of year exams or tests, probably better than any other year, because I had the one-to-ones, and I think that worked well for me in the comfort of my own house. But saying that, I loved the day when I got back into school. I remember going into school, seeing everybody. People didn't recognise me because my face was bloated. I was taking so much medication, it was bloated. I looked fat almost. I looked really big, wide, because I felt, I don't know, all the medication just, that's what happens really. But yeah, I had massive support from my school, Ysgol Brymarddin, and all my friends. I had massive amount of support while being in hospital as well. So get well soon cards from my head teachers, from the deputy head, from friends. I also had it touched every heartstring almost, and it still touches me. But my Welsh teacher, she made my Welsh class to write letters, and she would send it to me. And I remember actually opening all the letters, about 20 letters from my friends from Welsh class, even a letter from the teacher. They basically spent a day, that lesson, not doing work like from normal work, just did a lesson just to write a letter for me. And just thinking about it actually makes me emotional, because just that support is unbelievable, and I can't thank people enough for that. And I don't know how to. I probably could never repay that. But also, just going back to school was completely different. Just being with friends, when you go away and you come back to seeing your friends or old mates, there's no, not even if you're having an operation. If you just come back and even if you haven't seen your good friends for a while, there's no much better feeling, and it just perks you up. So it was such a nice feeling, being back at school. But then again, it wasn't all plain sailing that year, because I had to have regular checkups. So every Monday I would be in Bristol, and every Wednesdays and Fridays I'd have a checkup in Cardiff. So it was always full on. Yes, it did. I managed to get discharged from Bristol from checkups, and everything moved to Cardiff. But it did take time. And yes, my results were always up and down, because medication would affect it, and also how I would look after it, so the amount of drink. But development. So going back to my previous video, my development, my body was actually growing, and within the matter of that year I actually overtook my brother. Happy days, I was thinking. But about 10 years onwards, he's like double the size of me almost now, because he's the tallest. So but yeah, that year I actually overtook him, and actually grew and developed a lot quicker, and yeah, just everything was so much better post-transplant, and it just showed how much one kidney can do, because within a matter of 12 hours post-transplant, when the transplant kidney actually kicked in, my creatinine levels fell from 600, 700 to about 300, and it fell down to 55. That just shows how brilliant this, that's why people say a transplant organ is a gift of life. It's unbelievable. And in the next video, I'll explain what I managed to do with this kidney. And I've done so much, from Duke of Edinburgh to cycling 100 odd miles over Wales, and also just going away with my mates, going to university and everything. So that's all going to be in the next video. So thank you all for watching this one, this transplant video. Like the other one, it's just an overview. I will go into things more detailed, such as the day of the transplant, like that day with what tubes I actually have attached to me, what was actually happening, and why did that kidney actually not work at the start. So everything will get cleared up over time and over this channel, but I wanted to do these 3 videos, the before, the during, and the 10 years videos, just to give you an understanding of my journey. But then again, this channel will be more than just that. So thank you all for watching this video, and sticking by me and supporting this channel. Like I said with the other videos, message me, comment if you need any guidance or more information on things, and also if you want me to clear up anything, because I know these videos I try to do it quite a quick overview. So anything you want me to go and talk to you individually about, just let me know. So thank you all for the support, and see you in the next one.